Well, that was fun. We tried out having a intro video. We're getting all sophisticated. Production value. Welcome to the Ascendant Art podcast. Vinny, creator of Lil Chad, and with me as always is Joey, the Slender Dad, creator of Keeper's Karen. How are you, Joe?
I am well. I'm hoping our guest makes it because I got all excited about our guest. And
yeah, he's. Well, hopefully he'll be on there. We're gonna try to do it live like we always do. Oh, Rob's always coming in here and being our fan, which is cool. Hey, Rob, what's good, guys? What's really good? Hopefully having a guest this week. That'll be good.
I mean, if not, we'll just do what we do. We'll talk about things.
We got fun stuff to talk about anyway this week. I think we got a good few things to just kind of hang out and chat with. But like you said, worst case scenario, we'll fill in the air and do stuff. Still waiting for my crossover book. That's what Rob says. Yeah, looks like the wait continues. Sorry. So last week we were having a good time. We talked about Cobra Kai season 5. Did a little bit of Spy Family review. It was a good time, just nice hangout. I think this week we're going to talk about some more of the stuff that's going on right now. Be a little topical. We got a few topics that we were discussing that we touch on in the show today. I don't know if of the ones that we were talking about, if there was anyone that you would want to start with first, Joey?
I mean, like I said, the one I'm probably the most qualified to speak on at this point, and not because I've actually watched it, but because I've almost watched it, would be, Rings of Power. And from what I hear, it's pretty terrible. And from what I've seen, it's pretty terrible.
This is accurate. It is. So we're going to kind of touch on it, I think. So that's a good point. We'll start with the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. There's a lot of... you don't have to be an English major to know that you probably shouldn't have rings within 2 words of each other twice.
Yeah, the rings of redundancy.
Yeah. That's a good one. Rings of redundancy. So this is interesting because Nielsen, which is famous for having done the ratings for generations on regular television, has also created a ratings system for streaming services. And it's kind of getting off the ground. And it's going to be really important because most of these streaming services are going to be adding a subscription where they have an ad tier where you're going to have commercials. And these people the streaming services are going to start trying to sell commercials. So if they're going to sell commercials, the people buying them need to know who's watching what and how much. So the era of streaming services being able to just kind of not tell you what they actually were getting in terms of ratings and who was watching it and for how long are probably coming to an end pretty quickly. Because if there's one thing that advertisers want, it's knowing that information. So they started these streaming service ratings, and this is they're a few weeks behind. I don't know how they have to be so far behind, given that it's a streaming service and you have the numbers almost instantly. But it is what it is. I guess they aggregate it from the services, and that's why. So this is actually just came out today. And it's looking back at the week of August 29th through September 4th, which was when Rings of Power premiered with 2 episodes.
All right, but let's also point out, right? I don't have HBO Max. I haven't had HBO Max since I finished Game of Thrones because there was no further reason for me to continue to carry HBO Max. House of the Dragon doesn't look terrible, but it has not been enough to persuade me to re-up my subscription of HBO Max. I do have Prime Video, and I think they could have fudged those numbers a bit. I will speak, from personal experience, but I recently watched the latest episode of the Grand Tour, where Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, James May, they were all cruising around up in the Scandinavian area doing their car show, and it was awesome. What do you think Otto played when the Grand Tour ended? If you
Lord
had
of
to
the
guess.
Rings, Rings of Power, I would imagine.
Yes,
'Cause-
because clearly I wanted to watch that, right?
That's going to count as a streaming minute.
Yep.
So there's a lot of ways that that kind of system gets gamed, and Amazon was getting called out because I did hear some people pointing that out. Like, even in your streaming like app, have you noticed that they have the thing where if you move over to the show, it'll actually start playing in the background for you?
Yeah, it'll give you the little preview.
Yeah, so that's going to count as a streaming view for some services that they're sketchy, and they'll actually count that as a view when they're reporting their ratings, even though it's just people working on the endless scroll to try to find programming.
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. Your TikTok, your Vines back before TikTok became a thing. All those shows or those services where they're giving you the short little snippets, like, it's designed to put you in a Skinner box. The psychological concept being, if you get one good 15-second video that you really enjoyed, they can probably make you swipe through 15 more shitty ones to get to that next one good one.
Still lonely.
The psychological traps continue. Yeah, I'm the endless scroll of options is too much. What I think is funny though is if you look, it says House of the Dragon 3 episodes in its 5th, but at that point, people watching House of the Dragon are just watching generally the week of. They're watching the current week's episode. So that one current week episode of House of the Dragon clocks 781 million minutes viewed, whereas 2 episodes, the first 2 full episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, clocked 1,253 million minutes, so 1.2 billion. Yeah,
And then my
Yes.
next question: how is NCIS in the top 10?
Well, that's what I'm gonna get to. Coco Melon, which is just kids programming. Grey's Anatomy. This is a show that's been on forever. If you look, most of what people are watching and streaming is stuff that it's kind of background noise, things that they're comfortable with. Like, my father would probably put on NCIS random, just shuffle on which season of the 18 that are in there that would come on, and it would just just watch. So what's interesting is that as much money, like, think if you're Amazon and you invested $1 billion into the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and you're barely clocking 20% more views than NCIS, reruns, does that really make you feel good?
Well, Rings of Power, I mean, let's be honest, we've all heard the staggering dollar amounts that have been invested into that project. So they have to be putting up the most amazing numbers for this thing to actually be successful. And those aren't it. Like, this is not a success by any metric. This is not a success because at the end of the day, they put in more money than they're making off of it. And I think you're going to see diminishing returns as it progresses too, because your main character is a Mary Sue who is nothing like she's supposed to be based on everything we knew about her in the actual Lord of the Rings movies and the books. Just the one that really gets me is the scene where she's training these soldiers and she goes into
you say that
dual-wielding
because
fighting them.
guess what I just happen to have queued up ready to go.
The scene where she's fighting the soldiers?
Yep, we can.
Man, you should have seen Shad. He tore that shit apart. He lost his mind watching that sequence. If you're familiar with Shadiversity.
Of course, I let's see. There we go.
And as someone who is relatively adept at using swords and martial arts as well, I can tell you right now, yeah, this is a shit show.
I mean, look, all right, just right there. This is all right. So people who don't know about Lord of the Rings, lore, Numenor is not some podunk, like backwater town. Numenor is effectively the Atlantis, right? They're the pinnacle of human civilization. Their fighters were, known to be the greatest human fighters available.
If I remember correctly, they also are stronger than and live longer than normal humans.
Yes, so that's why Aragorn was such a long-lived human, because he was a descendant of Isildur's line, and they were Númenórean, which meant that they weren't elves, they weren't immortal, but they lived an awful, awful long time. Right, so yeah, was it Isildur was the one who beat Sauron and kept the ring. So there you go, fun little fact here. But let's have a little enjoyment here. I just love the stance that this warrior of Numenor takes, getting ready to fight Galadrial, as I've really enjoyed people calling her.
I'll tell you right now, just looking at them, neither of them has assumed a stance. and just pause it for a second.
The face, right? Is it the face she's making?
No, the face she's making it's obvious that she's trying really hard to act like she just gives no shits about the people who are trying to kill her, because they're not using blunted blades, as far as I can tell. Those look like metal. They look like actual swords, but okay, whatever. And no, the overcommitting to the swings in this scene is like, okay, maybe you're trying to show that she is way more skilled and able and competent with her blade than this guy. But what you have really shown us in this video is that this guy does not have any idea how to fight with a sword, because he overextends every time he swings the fucking thing. And it's like, this is your soldiery? This guy is one of your soldiers. Fire your army. They are not going to help you.
And again, these are the top tier. Remember, these
the greatest warriors in all the land.
The people who escaped Numenor and went, and they were the ones who created, was the city Gondor. They built that. I mean, remember in the first Fellowship of the Rings, when they're going down the river and they see the giant carved statues. These are the people who built those things. The prologue to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, when you've got the last alliance of men and elves facing down Sauron, right? Those were effectively, because they were the people of Gondor, the Númenóreans. That's who was leading that show. And this is, let's just again.
So why are they fighting in what looks like the marketplace? Like,
yeah, because apparently
are
that's
you
where you train,
so
right?
poor that you don't have training grounds for your soldiers? Like, preferably right beside the barracks.
And look at the face. She's just like, I'm beating you. And you're like, no. It's like, come on.
And his is the face of, I really wish I'd have asked for more money before I took this part.
Yeah, it's just, I don't, for people who might be listening to the audio only version of the podcast later, the show's everywhere, so you can find the video and the clips, but the facial expression for the actress playing Galadriel is just so
smug self-satisfaction.
Yes. Like, so she's training, and then of course, this reminds me, there was a and this is great. They're doing, you can see in the editing, they're completely doing cuts to try to cover
Wait, back it up a little. Okay, yeah. Now watch this. Watch this.
Yeah, where he'd pulled like the Three Stooges thing.
Why did that dude launch himself off of her ass like she just hip checked him with the force of 1,000 dragons?
This reminds me of when like Az at Heel versus Babyface and the other people like Mahler and them would do the reviews on Batwoman. And they just talk about the stuntmen, like
They
just
would talk
going,
about very accommodating stuntmen.
yeah, these are very accommodating stuntmen. Just like in wrestling, it's called putting somebody over, and overly exaggerated responses to the moves that are happening. And
Well, I'll tell you what, WWF was more convincing than this ever would be. Oh, I'm sorry, they changed their name, didn't they? They're WWE now.
yeah, they haven't been the World Wildlife Federation sued them 25 years ago and got that name.
Which was stupid.
I guess they had the name first, technically. All right, so let's get back to. Actually, this is let me get to that face. There it is. Like,
You know what's funny is this week, just because I really, really wanted to, I watched The Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. I'm going to finish it up this weekend, but like, Galadriel is nothing like this character. There is no logical reason in my brain that I could take this character and go, this is what becomes Galadriel in the Fellowship of the Ring. I just don't see it.
And she's already married at this point. She's supposed to be married. Was it Celebron? What's her husband's name?
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor.
Right?
Yep. So she's married. So, but she's just off. Like he goes, there is a tempest in her. Everybody's seen that little clip, and it's ridiculous. Let's keep going. This is actually just. I mean, like the stuntmen stopping, like.
And what the hell was that?
Yeah, where where they paused and just like walked up.
No. Did she just grab his sword out of his hand? Is that what was supposed to happen there?
Let's see this again. Yeah, she just like reached over.
She just grabbed his sword out of his hand. And the only thing he could bring himself to do in that whole exchange was look shocked that she grabbed his sword and punched the bitch in the face. Oh my god.
Right there. She just reaches over.
These are the defenders of your fucking kingdom.
Takes the sword. And then, of course, it's like, fight. There's a fight in the town square. Let's all go watch. Oh, now she's dual wielding. Because now we're going to have 4 people. And she's... Oh, look. It's not choreographed, just dance at all. And here comes one of my favorite parts.
This is awful.
Wait for it. Like,
yeah. Smacks him on the ass with the sword. And he acts like it hurts, despite the fact that he appears to be wearing some sort of padded leather armor.
No, here comes the twisted. I think the back. There it is. Like,
yeah, I don't know what this is.
I don't know either. So, at this point, she's just leaning over, and there's supposedly 5 or 6 people trying to fight her. This would be a terrible, terrible position, and she should be dead if there was anybody who was competent. But we can move on.
You know what's always amused me about these things too? This is a Hollywood misconception of some kind, but they always seem to think, well, if they're fighting more people, just give them another sword and they'll be able to fight more people more effectively. This doesn't necessarily help you.
Can we? All right. So I want you. I want to. We're gonna focus on this part here. Look, watch this. She sort of blocks, but you can see this guy's sword
Well,
is
he
actually.
sort of wasn't trying to hit her, and
Yeah.
he. Why is he? What's with this lunge?
But here, what I'm getting at is his sword is actually making physical contact with her shoulder. Swords are generally, bladed weapons, right? Just if you drag it across that shoulder, she'd be cut. But no, we don't do. Look, it's right there. She's not actually blocking it off of her body.
Yeah, I don't.
Am I crazy? Am I like?
I don't
Do you
know if
see
they're
what I'm
trying
talking
to
about?
say that since she's got the reverse grip, she's got it braced against her forearm and is using it kind of like a shield. It doesn't look like it.
But that would be fine if she was turned further away and the blade of the other person's sword was on just her sword.
Yeah, and in all honesty, with her position, like he could launch so many follow-up strikes here that would kind of leave her screwed because she's up against a pillar. And her arm that's to the back isn't going to be able to get around to block quickly enough. And that reverse grip, it doesn't allow for a lot of mobility for blocks. Like she's in a terrible position here. But I am sure she will somehow seize the day and defeat them all like it was no big deal.
Okay, so this is even better. Look at this view. You see his sword just on her arm with the bladed side on her.
Well, this is what must have made the little cut on the shirt that she talks about at the end of the scene. Yeah, what the hell was that? And that. And that. Yeah, and it ever so slightly cut her dress. And they're all like, oh man, great job. You almost nicked her.
This is so silly. And here's not Sauron, who is clearly Sauron.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Oh man.
It's just ridiculous. And this is what they spent $1 billion making. Well, I think that include the rights fees. I do know that this one season of Rings of Power cost more than the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy of movies.
And yet, any one of those movies was 1,000 times better than any one of these episodes.
I would agree. And getting back to the ratings aspect of it, sure, they got number one on 2 episodes premiere week. But if you do the math and divide, 1253 by 2, because it was 2 episodes, that means one episode effectively got 626 million watch hours. Game of Thrones, this isn't even House of the Dragon is the new show. Game of Thrones, which is the old show, both of them are clocking higher numbers than what one individual episode of Lord of the Rings was doing, basically. One episode was worth about 626 million watch minutes. Old Game of Thrones pulled 792. Hot D, House of the Dragon, pulled 781. Honestly, look, Echoes, which is Netflix's like just mini series, show of the week, at number 10 pulled 627 million. So one episode of Lord of the Rings Rings of Power would end up effectively at 11. It wouldn't even make the top 10 on a single episode basis. I mean, I'm very interested to see when week 2 comes out for these ratings, because when it's only really measuring one episode, if that fall off happens as it should, where it like halves the number of available minutes that people would want to watch, this thing could fall to the bottom of the top 10 or even out of it. Now, one of the things Lord of the Rings, defenders are pointing out, they'll switch to this chart, which is the original chart. And you notice how Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon aren't on this chart, because those ones are technically considered acquired shows for HBO Max. I don't have any idea how that works, but apparently they're in the acquired section instead of original. Which is interesting, because then there's She-Hulk, right?
Is it because they acquired the rights for the adaptation from the books?
I think technically, since HBO Max is streaming off of the HBO proper, because this doesn't include HBO ratings, like the actual, channel HBO. I think it's some loophole that they're putting them on in that category, because all the rest of these shows are like shows that, like Friends is, was made for NBC years ago and they acquired it. Big Bang Theory, Bluey, Grey's Anatomy. These are all just regular network shows. And then there's NCIS, which has 354 episodes. That show is still going on right now. Great. But
is that show still going? Like,
it is.
New episodes
they're still making
out?
new episodes, I believe.
Oh my god. End it. Just end it. Wasn't that good a show to begin with? I'm sorry.
It's comfort food, right? It's the shows that you can just put on, and any episode is basically the same, so you just feel comfortable. You're comfortable with that show. But this does actually, now that's a good segue here for another topic, which is She-Hulk.
Oh boy.
It is not even cracking, like, look at the, look at its numbers compared to the other, like House of the Dragon. This is 1 week's viewership, which is 781 million minutes. She-Hulk Attorney at Law is coming in only at 472. It is barely beating a show, The Sandman, that's been out, I don't know, like 8 weeks now. It's not a successful show. It's not. And Disney is going to have to come to terms with that. So,
yeah, I don't know. I feel like Marvel is kind of spent at this point.
And here is our night. Look at that. This is their CGI that they're using. This is the top quality, top flight, Disney-owned CGI manufacturing system come into play. Look at that high-quality Jolly Green Giant.
I mean, yeah, but the Jolly Green Giant was at least a likable individual.
Yeah, and you can see just the...
Like, the one thing you can't say about the girl playing the She-Hulk is that, yeah, she looks awful, but she makes up for it with a great personality. She doesn't. She got terrible personality, too, from what I've seen.
Yeah, they don't let her... I don't know what I mean, I do know. I think that it's a poorly written show with not a lot of thought. They have somebody that they could make very likable. She-Hulk in the comics, the famous runs in the 90s, she was very, very popular with comic fans. They would be all screaming from the rafters about how amazing this show would be if they just adapted, what was going on in those episodes, not episodes, in those comic books. And they don't. They decided to try to, make it current year, go crazy with it. And this is, I think, the price they're paying. It's not popular. It's not even trendy on the internet. Like, there's not people running out and tweeting about it all over the place. It doesn't even get that. Like, they're not even getting, the internet attention. It's just, that's how bad it's. Like, the normies don't like it. They're not watching it. Comic book people checked out forever ago, and they're not even getting the Twitterati to care about it.
Well, and that's almost like a life cycle, right? Like, a franchise gains popularity, and as it gains the popularity, it gains the viewership, and that viewership grows as the franchise continues to put out content. But then as the content as the well starts to run dry, if you will, then you start losing the audience, and the only way to keep your hooks in them is, baiting the fans as you would. But eventually that starts to kind of lose its effectiveness too, and then you just get casual indifference, and everybody just kind of stops listening, stops watching, stops tuning in, because they're not even willing to hate watch it anymore. And that is where I think a lot of the newest Marvel projects have ended up. Like, you can't even make the fans pissed off enough to watch it anymore. Like, they kind of did that with what was it? The "You Got to Do Better" Senator guy.
With the Falcon for
Yeah.
now, the new Captain America. Like, you do better. Do better.
Yeah,
That's
you
my
got to
power.
do better.
That's gonna be your superpowers, doing better.
Yeah. I don't know. Kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. It was. I don't understand the concept. You work in finance. That's what I do in day job, and it just baffles my mind that these entertainment companies are just comfortable lighting money on fire. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. I mean, I don't have enough money to just light it on fire at $1 billion a clip, or She-Hulk money going out the window.
Yeah, like I said, I'd be happy to keep talking about it, but it's not even worth talking about anymore.
Yeah,
That's the problem with it.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually kind of bored of it now too. It's a good spot to maybe go to our. That's all we need to say about She-Hulk. It's like, was that part of Forrest Gump? That's all I have to say about that. So we'll go from there. But what we will look at now is, this is going to be a fun topic. This is Elizabeth Banks. She is famous for being an actress that evolved into a director, and she was the one who directed Charlie's Angels, the latest one that came out in 2019. And so she has now done a new interview where she is trying to gaslight the world and pretend that the Charlie's Angels, per the headline, was not a feminist manifesto. I was just making an action movie.
Yeah, there are a lot of quotes of things she said in this interview that are just like, to me, They ring hollow. They are statements of someone who is lying through their teeth.
We've got here. This is one of my favorite quotes. There was a story around Charlie's Angels that I was creating some feminist manifesto. I was just making an action movie. I would have liked to have made Mission Impossible, but women aren't directing Mission Impossible. I was able to direct an action movie, frankly, because it starred women and I'm a female director, and that is the confine right now in Hollywood. I wish that the movie had not been presented just for girls because I didn't make it just for girls. There was a disconnect on the marketing side of it for me. If this was football, I'd be throwing the flag on that quote. That was some major league level bullshit.
Also, what's a woman again?
No.
Never mind. Sorry. Just leading the witness. My bad.
Yeah. But no, because I remember, I mean, if you were watching YouTube videos at the time, they covered this extensively. The quotes were in the videos they made. Elizabeth Banks was out there, selling this movie as as the coming of age moment for female led directing and action movies, that they didn't need no man, that this was about women. And then when the movie bombed, they were like, why didn't men go see it? Because you were telling us that. Because they even did the interview where, it's not for you, right? The famous little quote. If you don't like it, don't go see it. Well, no one went and saw it. So, it is some B. I just don't like the absolute hubris. Like, where's the Picard? We need that video clip from Picard. Sheer effing hubris.
Sheer fucking hubris.
To come out and do these interviews and say these things when everything is on the internet. The internet is forever, and people can just pull up the news articles, the previous quotes, all of it, and put it right. What is it, as they say on some of the YouTubers, caught in 4K. You can just get it. You're just
well, as you well know, these frickin' agenda-driven types like her, if she were called on it, she would then continue to dig the hole by saying, I was just saying what the marketing department told me to say in those interviews. They made me say it, guys.
Yep. I think that's where she was going with. There was a disconnect on the marketing side of it for me. She's trying to throw.
Oh, she left that. She left that little escape hatch there for a reason.
Yeah, it was the marketing. It was all the marketing fault. It was terrible. It was a bad movie. It bombed, and partially it bombed because it was in that moment because that was around the same time. It was a few months before Birds of Prey came out. And they were bookends for movies being marketed terribly, terribly wrong.
Well, Charlie's Angels, the travesty of a Ghostbusters remake, Birds of Prey, like you said, like there was a whole slew of movies where it's like, we're gonna do this girl power movie, and it's like, I don't know if this is a girl power movie or a man hate movie, but I'm leaning toward the latter.
Yeah, it was definitely a terrible. So I like to judge movies as they are, right? Even if there's movies that maybe they have an agenda and a point of view. And if they're well made and the message is crafted well, I can still enjoy the movie and appreciate it for what it is. It wasn't a good movie. Like, if you wanted to get that message across, you did it poorly. This movie just doesn't even stand up on that. Then you can get to the message part being terrible. It's like Birds of Prey was a terrible movie, so it made the messaging part worse. There's great movies that one of my favorite ones growing up was was the now I'm going blank on it. War Games with Matthew Broderick. Super anti-war movie. Like the only way to win is to not play the game. It was a really well done movie. Did I think that from a geopolitical standpoint it was probably the best, approach to take? No. But that message was actually more effective for me because it was a well done movie. I'm sure there's movies you've watched where even though you disagree maybe with the message, because it's actually a well crafted, well done story, it makes you more sympathetic to that message.
Oh yeah, I think it was Toys with Robin Williams. Like, in all honesty, I agree with the villain in that movie a lot more than I agree with the good guys in that movie. Like, and I mean, if you've seen modern warfare in any way, yeah, drones are a big thing, and yeah, training a bunch of teenagers to fly drones.
I mean, they've kind of just they were just ahead of the curve on that movie.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I was rooting for Robin Williams, and I think it was Cuba Gooding Jr. in the gang, and like they were the good guys. I liked them, but the evil general who took over the toy company and was using it to make weapons of war out of the toys, like some effective combat tactics, if you ask me.
I kind of feel like somebody at the Pentagon was watching that and started thinking, wait a second. We could probably do this now.
Well, honestly, and what's better? Having these little drones that go out and, prosecute the target, or sending a bunch of soldiers who could die. I'd rather lose some toys than soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, then you've also got, not to get into the finer philosophical argument, but once you eliminate the risk of war, does that propagate war happening?
Not sure if I follow the...
If you can do it all with drones and robots and not people on the field, wouldn't you almost create a massive constant ongoing state of war, because the cost of war is not felt by the population?
I don't know if you've noticed, but most wars are forever wars. It's just, are they hot enough to be considered wars, or are they cold? Like, not to delve too far into the political side of the house, but like the Ukraine-Russia thing, it's been going on for decades. It's just never gotten this hot before.
Yeah, if you count Chernobyl, it got hot for a little bit, but that wasn't war. That was just a reactor meltdown.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like the conflicts that are happening throughout the world, they go on for years and years and years and years and years. I don't think the drones really change anything other than the fact that you can kind of, you don't have to risk quite as much. But if the combat gets too extreme, I mean, that's when soldiers are going to get brought in either way. So mm-hmm. I get what they're saying. Oh, well, you make war too easy, then everybody just could do it all the time. No, I don't buy that.
Well, and the bottom line is you still need boots on the ground to hold territory. They still haven't figured out a way to do that, unless you're going to be like RoboCop and put in Ed 209 out there to do it. You still need a physical presence to hold territory.
Yeah.
Now, what all of that is getting at is how Elizabeth Banks is a big old liar, pants on fire about not having made Charlie's Angels a feminist manifesto. That was seeping from the movie, and that was the primary goal of the movie before telling a fun action movie story.
Yeah, and honestly, it has nothing to do with the fact that a woman was directing it or anything else. Like you just didn't do a very good job telling a fucking story. Like I don't know. As someone who does not write movie scripts, I'm sure there are many differences to writing a full on story, a full length novel, if you will. But a lot of the the foundations of storytelling are still there, and I don't see them in so much of today's you know art art. Like it's not there anymore. People have lost all grasp of the fundamentals, if you will.
That is definitely, I think, the case. But there is still some good stuff. There's still good stuff. Like we did last week when we had a fun show talking about two really good current year things. I think soon, once the dub is finished, we'll have a fun time talking about Overlord season 4.
Oh, did you already finish it?
Yeah, and it was chef's kiss. Once you see this last episode, I don't I don't want to say anything about it because I just want your unvarnished reaction to how that goes. Because it was amazing.
I mean, I hope it doesn't disappoint. I've been loving the season so far.
I'm actually just really sad that it's ending, but at the same time, we're gonna get right into Spy Family coming back. I think Mushoku Tensei is gonna be coming back, which you still need to watch the first season of, which was fantastic. But I think the Overlord conversation, especially this season, there's gonna be some stuff. Now I do know they're gonna be putting a movie out for Overlord, and it's gonna actually take place within the season. It's gonna explain, kind of what happened earlier.
Ooh, that's a bad idea.
Well, that it was already done. It's basically their OVA, but they're gonna release it into the movie theater.
Full Metal Alchemist did that, and it went terribly.
I mean, they're doing pretty good. I mean, these anime releases into movie theaters have been doing pretty good. I think.
Oh, here's hoping then.
Here's hope. uh,
Listen, okay, with all the content that comes out all the time, like if there's one thing you can probably agree with me on, they're putting out a lot more crap than good. And although there are good animes, there are plenty of animes that are kind of not good too. So I'm not going to give anime a pass when, I like a few animes, but they're putting out a lot of content too, and I think the rule of thumb is like 80% of the content ain't that great.
Yeah, but that's true because the anime system is so unique, especially from an American perspective, where they have every season, like spring, summer, fall, winter. They're coming out with completely new slates of anime. That's a pretty prolific amount of content to have to put out there. But then you start thinking about they can do that because they don't ever really have more than 3 or 4 shows that go for more than a couple seasons. And the ones that even go longer than 3 seasons, or you could probably count on one hand, like, I guess maybe Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, One Piece. But One Piece has been going on forever, so I think that's one of the reasons they can be so shotgun with their approach to anime. Which one of these will finally hit? I mean, they've got an almost endless supply from their, from the manga that is being produced over there, and the light novels. And there's shows I remember, like I really, and this is funny for me because there's a couple seasons back there were shows I was absolutely in love with, and now I just it feels like it was 20 years ago because there's been so much anime I've consumed since then.
Oh yeah, agreed.
And then you've got like the random like shows like Devil is a Part-Timer, where the second season came out was like 8-9 years after the first one.
It was so long.
I mean, that almost tells me that somebody in Japan, a producer who has money, was like, I really just want to see the second season animated. I'm going to fund it. And it just like took that long for somebody who liked it when they were like a teenager to have the money to do it.
Oh, I've been loving the second season so far.
Oh, no, it's great. I mean, the first season was fantastic.
Devil is a Part-Timer has not disappointed this year.
No, I mean, I think Devil is a Part-Timer and Overlord Season 4, the fact that they're both coming out in this season, they're both wrapping up now. This was a great season. There was a lot of people who had problems with Shield Hero Season 2. I think you maybe even didn't like it so much.
It was a far cry from Season 1, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, are we supposed to be getting Goblin Slayer Season 2 soon?
I don't know. I've never actually seen the first season of Goblin Slayer.
Yeah, I feel like you would love Goblin Slayer.
I watched Goblin Slayer abridged.
It was
hysterical.
Was it like, I'm going to kill goblins? And then just 20 minutes of him killing goblins?
I'm the Goblin Slayer. I hate goblins.
You should watch it. Actually, Goblin Slayer is almost is right up your alley. Because he's actually like, he's just focused on his thing. Like, I only take missions that, to kill goblins. And they all make fun of him, but then they all need him because he is a subject matter expert.
Like a seriously subject matter expert too, from what I've seen.
Yeah, well, I mean, the
I don't have a problem with Goblin Slayer. It's just I got kids, so I don't really have a chance to watch Goblin Slayer.
Well, the first episode is where things get, where the reputation for Goblin Slayer was made, was that first episode.
Yeah.
The going on past that, it's just kind of normal anime level inappropriate. There's occasional times where there's girls in a hot spring, because there's always girls in a hot spring.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the formula.
But but the first episode, really, it's the first episode that is. There's a couple like flashbacks and things in the later part of the season, but I'm sure you saw the controversy came from that first episode with the hero party that got jumped by the goblins, and bad things ensued.
Yeah, what happened to the women in that party?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say if you watch the first episode after the kids go to bed, then you'd be fine going forward from there. They just do occasional flashbacks that are to that scene, but it's not enough that it would be terrible. So I'm just talking around it because of YouTube content and podcast service content works.
Yeah. I think everybody can.
Everybody can kind of pick up what's going on.
Know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, goblins do bad things when they get a chance because they need more goblins, so you can put 2 and 2 together. But it was an entertaining show. There was more going on than just that. I think the traditional media response is that it's, oh my god, it must be terrible because bad things happen. Well, that's the whole point of the Goblin Slayer. He exists specifically. He's obsessed with killing goblins because he was traumatized. He's almost like a Punisher character, right? He was traumatized by goblins killing his family, he's never gonna let that happen again. Like it's being a street level hero instead of, there's, the hero is fighting the Demon King, and they're like, isn't it amazing? He's like, do I have to kill goblins? No, I'm gonna kill goblins. And part of that is the message of, and I think this is something that a lot of anime doesn't. While the hero's off fighting the Demon King, there's still bad things happening to local villagers. Like, who's dealing with that problem? No one cares about that because it doesn't bring the glory. And that's where Goblin Slayer, like, they mock him for what what they think he is, which is just basically like the rat catcher equivalent of the heroes at the, but he ends up, but at the end, they all learn that, oh my gosh, goblins are a real threat. They could have done real damage. It's a good thing Goblin Slayer's around.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, I don't think I wouldn't like it. It definitely is one of the ones that's on my radar. It's just, like I said, it's weird timing to try and watch something like that.
Yeah, I guess, and I don't think it would be good with your kid. I don't know if they watch violent anime or not. Probably not. Maybe.
Depends on the violence, I guess.
Yeah, well, like I said, after the first episode, it switches over to more traditional anime violence, with goblins being slayed mercilessly.
I mean, if I remember correctly, they watched Death Note.
I mean, well, Death Note had a lot of violent ends.
If you're talking about the Netflix one, I guess so. There weren't a whole lot of super violent ends in the anime. Mostly it was heart attacks.
That's one of my favorite parts of watching, like, Final Destination.
Yeah, but I
By
didn't.
the third movie
a live
on,
action adaptation of Death Note, though.
no, that was unnecessary. But Final Destination, man, by the third movie, they were coming up with some really creative ways to kill people.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
And there were a hell of a lot more. By the third one, there were also a hell of a lot more. Oh, this is gonna kill him. Oh, this is gonna kill him. Oh, he's gonna die. Oh no, haha, we got you. You thought he was gonna die, and we faked you out. There was a lot of that.
I loved, like, when they kept highlighting something, and you're like, oh, this is, and then it wasn't that, and it was something like, the best example was when the kid, I forget which Final Destination it was, where he was at the dentist's office. And he's, the entire time in the dentist's office, like, they keep showing the drill and showing this, and you're like, oh my god, this kid's gonna die, like, in the dentist's office. And he gets out of the dentist's office, and you're like, what's going on? And then a giant glass pane falls on him and, like, destroys him. And you're like, oh, that came out of nowhere.
That is how it works sometimes.
Because he decided to scare a bird. It was, I mean, I have a lot of appreciation for the Final Destination series. I think it's underrated for just being fun.
In its way, yeah.
In its way, I mean, it's just a good time. How do you can you just appreciate things, Joey? Can you just
I don't dislike those movies.
The best you can do is, I don't dislike them. They're good.
I'm not it's not my kind of scary movie.
They got Tony Todd in there in the first movie. And I love Tony Todd. He needs to be in so much more stuff. You know who I'm talking about, right? Candyman?
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he was also really good in Star Trek. Super underrated in that. He was Worf's brother. He also played the very adult Jake Sisko in the time-traveling episode of Deep Space Nine. Good stuff. We're getting off on a tangent, but that's what we do. It's a hangout. And it was a lot more fun to talk about that. You see, and that's what I think we'll try to do, at least once an episode when we're getting down from all these terrible contents that are coming out. When Galadriel is beating the Numenorians, and She-Hulk has terrible Jolly Green Giant CGI, and Elizabeth Banks is trying to
I
gaslight
mean,
everybody.
at this point, I almost feel like if they could, they would somehow rewrite it so that, you know, what was it? Isildur? Was it Isildur who cut off
Isildur, yeah.
Sauron's hand?
Isildur is a character in the Rings of Power.
Who? But who cut off Sauron's finger?
Yeah, it was Isildur.
Yeah. Like I said, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to rewrite it that it was actually Galadriel who did that.
Yeah. They're going to be like, it'll be a thing where he'll flash back to how Galadriel taught him when the opponent isn't looking to.
Cut their hand off.
Like, it'll be like a clip. If you ever have your sword broken and they're just over you, this is a perfect time to do this and cut their hand off.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad that Galadriel taught me that.
I would have been lost without her.
But of course he's a man, so he kept the ring and broke everything.
Of course, she would have just cast it into the flame like she was supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, she was offered the ring by Frodo and she turned it down. But that was good Galadriel, like as played by Cate Blanchett. So I don't know what this one would do. She has a tempest in her. I mean, this show is, I mean, I appreciate the memes. It's fun. But
The memes are enjoyable.
I don't know if it's great to spend $1 billion to make memes. You can do it a lot cheaper. Jeff Bezos is supposed to be a really big Lord of the Rings fan, but he is not the CEO of Amazon anymore. And I wonder if he is a little upset with how this actually turned out.
I don't know. I don't know if you're like. Who is the CEO then? It's not Bezos anymore.
No, he retired from being CEO a couple years ago.
So he could spend more time on his super yacht.
So the CEO of Amazon is Andy Jassy. He took over in 2021.
Oh,
It
did
was
not know that.
basically, Jeff Bezos got himself divorced. Then after he got himself divorced, he decided, I don't want to do I don't need to be CEO of Amazon anymore. So I'm gonna do. Oh, let's see. Speaking of cheap Ring of Power, Isildur lives over 2,000 years old. Yeah, they're jumbling and shoving so much stuff into this second age time period to try to make sure that they've got characters people want to, or at least recognize, that it screws up the timeline. But I think they just don't care. They have the rights to what they have, and they're gonna make a show that they want to make. Isildur will be coached by Galadriel after she'll be the one who really beats Sauron. Or that I think that they're gonna have something where her and Sauron are in a relationship.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because they do love their infidelity in these new series as well.
Let's see, Sauron hasn't even surrendered yet. Where are the actual Rings of Power? So yeah, for the entire first season, they're probably not going to be there. I don't think that they're going to have the Rings of Power actually appear at all in the first season, because they haven't even been forged yet, because Sauron has to teach the elf, was it Celeborn who forged them? So,
Maybe.
Yeah, so he has to. Sauron teaches him how to forge the Rings of Power, and in secret, makes the one ring that rules them all. So we haven't even touched that in storyline wise. So I think I don't know what their plan is. They're gonna lose a lot of people because it is not good. I mean, I look back. There was a show called an Atlantis show on that the BBC made like 15, 16 years ago, and it looked almost the same.
Was you talking about Sequest?
I am gonna show you this. Like, all right, let's see. Let me turn this. All right. So I'm gonna show you the Atlantis show from the BBC, like in 2013, and tell me if it doesn't look like it's the same level stuff. Let's see. So they're gonna stuff the entire story of Sauron corrupting Numenor into a 10-minute scene. Yeah, that'd be my guess. They're gonna, if they even give it that much attention.
I was gonna say they really like just kind of showing how awesome Galadrial is, and then giving you exposition on the back end. So it might just be someone talking about it later.
Yep. All right. So this right here was from 12 years ago, and it's Atlantis from BBC. And doesn't the set and the character designs and the costumes look a lot like Rings of Power?
Comparable. They may have repurposed these sets.
Oh, look, we even have this is perfect. Like, imagine that's Galadriel here dodging those arrows. This autumn, right? So this was 2013. So that's what 9 years ago. Done on a BBC budget, right? Which probably wasn't anywhere near. And this is exactly the same level of production value that we're getting from Rings of Power.
I don't know. Some of those outfits look better than what I've seen in Rings of Power. Like, they need to fire a wardrobe, because I don't know what all the royalty wearing weird scale armor is supposed to be, but like they're wearing like scale breastplates, and then they have like shirts that have scale patterning on them under the breastplate, and I'm like, that looks a lot like, materials that I don't think existed in Middle Earth that those shirts are made out of. What is going on here? That's not armor.
Yeah. So Nikki says, no. Sauron hasn't even been captured yet. He still has to come to Numenor as a prisoner, then become an advisor, then corrupt it. I think that the character Halbrand is going to end up being Sauron. It's not exactly but nothing is how it was supposed to go with Sauron's, arrival in Numenor. But I think that it's close enough that they're going to say, because he arrived with Galadriel, he became, he's, a blacksmith of great skill. He's involved with kind of whispering to people on how to do things. I think they're trying to telegraph that the person who fell from the meteor is maybe Sauron. No, that's going to end up being a wizard. And I think it's going to end up being Gandalf specifically, because he's with proto-hobbits, the Harfoots, and that's going to help explain why Gandalf always had such a love for hobbits. Because they want to use later Lord of the Rings as much as possible without actually having the rights to do it. So Halbrand, who is a new character, is going to end up being Sauron.
Yeah. Proto-hobbits.
Sauron's corruption of Numenor. Show us that. That's a TV show. That's right. That would be some Game of Thrones level fun, like intrigue kind of stuff. Like Numenor was Atlantis, if you want to, as that big thing is on the screen now. And Sauron went there and manipulated and corrupted and brought them down and brought about the end of Numenor, because he use their own arrogance for them to go all Icarus style towards towards the Valnor or whatever their names are, trying to go out. I think west to the magical forever continent that only elves are supposed to be able to go into.
The Undying Lands.
The Undying Lands, and then yeah, cliche Mediterranean costumes. That's right, and that's what's on Rings of Power. Because I think they're trying to go for some kind of Roman look since Numenor was supposed to be kind of the most advanced civilization. But they are definitely going for a cliche Mediterranean island people. Let's see. Oh. There we go. That'll work. Let's share. Because, yes, I think the cliche is summed up pretty good right here. This is the Numenorian dress, which is cliche Roman-like Mediterranean. Although it's supposed to be the Second Age, so they're mixing. It looks like they've got like some ancient Roman look, but they're also mixing in some medieval costume design. It's a mess. It is a mess.
It's kind of all over the place.
But when you look at that after just watching that Atlantis trailer, am I wrong? Like they seem like they kind of they're the same level. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's like I wanted to stop and drink it in for a minute, really give it a kind of a critical look, and I'm like, yeah, these look terrible. Like, I would say the best looking one there is the guy in the middle. Like, his robes look okay. But honestly, they're probably the most cliche of anyone's.
Bring that comment back right up. Cliche Mediterranean costumes. Highlight.
Yeah.
Because it's the truth. It is the truth of the matter.
Truth.
Truth.
The truth hurts.
Truth hurts. Not as much as Galadriel was able to hurt all those super expert swordsmen. And like, all right, so on this armor, look at this armor right here. I mean, is that supposed to be leather armor, or is it? Yeah.
I don't know, but the things on his shoulders would probably limit his mobility to a certain degree.
Yeah, because usually if you're doing leather armor, you're going for a lighter weight. I mean, let's see. How hard would Gondorian armor be? Yeah, they could. I'm pretty sure, Nikki, that they could have called Weta up and said, hey, you guys did it perfect. Can we pretty much break out those molds, change them to be Numenorian? Because Gondor was the heir of Numenor. Why not? You can just devolve them a little bit to the Numenorian style, make it. I'm sure the Weta Workshop people would have done a fantastic job, but I don't know. I don't think they did that.
Yeah, normally if you're wearing like a... What are we laughing about?
Look at the comment. the dude. He does. Like
the proper term is moobs.
That's true.
But normally if you're wearing a breastplate like that, the shoulder guards would be segmented off. Like they wouldn't be attached. They'd be like tied on with cord or belted to your shoulder itself. But like you can't lift your arm with that there.
No, you need something that's usually sitting separate. There. I mean, if you look at even old like legit suits of armor, the armor plate, the shoulder was always sitting was a piece on top to allow movement.
And these are a seafaring people. Like, what if this dude's got to climb up in the riggings?
Yep, that's the other thing. Yeah, you should be looking at traditional, like doing that. I'll use the PC vernacular moobs going forward. There you go. That's
Thank
we've,
you.
We've done a public service tonight.
I appreciate the the rephrasing.
Phrasing. I mean, but it's just nothing about this screams $1 billion and caring about
And
the
I mean, if you're
production
gonna
value.
give him the man boobs anyway, you could at least put some abs down there. Like, I'd complain if I went over to the blacksmith and the armorer handed me this. I'd be like, dude, you gave me these pecs, but there's no abs to go with them. Now I just look like a fat guy with man boobs.
Exactly, and because I think here we go. Let's do this.
Now you throw the George Clooney nipples on there, and he's good to go.
So you've got this armor. Dude in the middle looks like he's about to invent socialism. That might be the comment of the show.
Numenor belongs to everyone.
That is going to be what he does. All right, but I want to. So this was going back. What Gladiator came out in 2000. If you were going to make that kind of armor look, which is the more leather-based mobile armor, and this is exactly what Joey was talking about. You can see the shoulder piece would allow for movement. Because that actually looks like an authentic.
And that armor is like, that's some good looking armor. Like that's a nice set of armor.
Is the episode late or something? Power of the the armor was beautiful in Gladiator. Yes. I think they had costume designers who cared. And I can tell you what's funny is they had a fraction of the budget that the Rings of Power had. So how do you get that? Because I'm pretty sure you could totally make armor that worked. I mean, look at this. This is armor versus...
I mean, Gladiator was on a whole nother level, though. Like the swords, the armor, everything was very well put together, thought out, and researched.
I'm just gonna bring we're gonna bring it back up to compare. This is what we were comparing the armor to. Did you know Russell Crowe was going to play Aragorn in Lord of the Rings? He had just finished Gladiator and didn't want to. I know that the story that I'm familiar with is that they had actually started shooting with...
They had cast somebody else entirely. I don't remember what his name was.
I think it was... Why do I want to say it was the dude from Mission Impossible 2?
Stuart Townsend.
Yeah, it was Stuart. Okay, Stuart Townsend. There you go. Yep. Chat always comes through. So Stuart Townsend had actually come in and he had shot for like 2-3 weeks. And he just was not working out. And that's when they brought in Vigo. It is Vigo. Vigo is who we need.
Well, if I remember correctly, like Townsend was like, no, I'm not gonna learn how to sword fight. No, I don't want to learn how to ride horses. No, I'm not gonna do this. I'll get it when we shoot. I'll get it when we shoot. Like, dude, wow. Yes, we did. I think I watched it just the other day.
And Stuart Townsend did go on to be in an action movie that where he did have to use a sword, where the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So I guess that's the level of commitment he was ready to go with. We watched the same documentary.
Yeah, I watched it on YouTube. I don't
Yep,
remember
on
what it
YouTube.
was, but YouTube must be hunt me on the algorithms because I've been watching the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy this week, and then Lord of the Rings type recommendations started popping up in my YouTube. So
This is all right. I have to stop sharing that. I can't look at that terrible production design anymore. So terrible.
yeah, and I think it was the guy who played Gandalf, whose names I'm blanking on because I'm a
Ian
horrible
McKellen.
person. Yeah, I think it was Ian McKellen who went to the director and said, "I don't think I can work with this guy."
Yeah. Gandalf. He was a good Gandalf. What was great about that, and I'm sure it was addressed in the documentary, is that Christopher Lee, who was friends with Tolkien in life before he passed away, had wanted to play Gandalf for his basically entire adult life. But by the time they were making those movies, he felt like he was just too old to be able to pull it off, and so he took on Sauron. Rather
Yeah, and I think he did a great job as Sauron. To be honest, like they both kind of the scene where they actually have their battle, like that's a show stealer. That whole scene is just pretty epic. You don't see wizards fighting like that in anything else.
It's a damn shirt with a metal plate on it. It's a quick trip to Goodwill, then the junkyard would produce a better costume. I am not going to lie. I've been to a lot of conventions in my life, and the cosplay work I've seen I would trust a lot of them more than the people doing the costume design on Rings of Power based on what I've seen.
Dude, you grab one of those people off the con floor, you give them a budget and a couple people to help them out, and I guarantee you they'd produce better. I guarantee it. They'd probably make some really awesome shit.
I know. I mean, some of those cosplayers make amazing stuff, and they do it on their own with spending their own money. If you want a good idea of how involved cosplaying can be, I would recommend a fine slice of life anime called My Dress Up Darling, which covers some of the cosplayer community and how much they care about what they're actually putting out there into the world.
Well, and on the cosplay subject, like a lot of people think I'm 8, 9 feet tall, right? Because I'm slender, Dad, and I'll tell you a secret: drywall stilts.
There you
That's
go.
what makes me 8 feet tall.
When you're in full costume, when you do your
When
thing.
I'm fully decked out and I'm going out to terrorize the children on Halloween, I got drywall stilts and a pair of pants that my wife tailored for me that goes all the way down to the bottom of the stilts.
Excellent. That is how you do it. Because when you're a cosplayer who cares, you make sure you find the ways to bring authenticity and realism to what you're trying to do, as opposed.
Yeah, and you just never stand up when you're under a ceiling fan.
As opposed to, as Nikki's pointing out, the show screams, "Give me money for buying Lord of the Rings." Like that's they had $1 billion. I'm intrigued because I listened to some of the other YouTube personalities who kind of go over this, and I think the Midnight's Edge guys were talking a little bit about. There's got to be so much graft on those per episode budgets. Like each episode is supposed to be 70-80 million dollars, and clearly it's not going on the screen. So there's probably money being fudged about to other people. Some people got
Yeah,
rich off
who
this
is
show.
that character? Since she's jumping on that question now, who was the Slim Shady character? I don't I don't understand it.
Yeah, they're gonna be some kind of these are original creations, I think, for the Amazon show too. Like,
Are you sure that's not Sauron?
no, so when the first image leaked out of those people, where it was just images, a lot of people thought that was supposed to be Sauron, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Halbrand character. The it just because here's why I think it's going to be him most of all. They're setting up a kind of dynamic between him and Galadriel that's almost romantic, and I think these people are so screwed up that they're gonna create a backstory where Galadriel was in love with Sauron and he's
Oh yeah,
evil.
cucked the shit out of Celebrimbor
Yep. And
and almost got taken down the dark path, but was able to overcome it at the last moment.
yes, and that she's gonna be she's gonna be the one who teaches Isildur to overcome, but that's why she couldn't go out there and fight. But she's gonna, or they might have her out there fighting. I don't know, but I think it's gonna be Halbrand because his backstory fits just enough of what Sauron was supposed to be doing in Numenor, and it just works that he was magically the only other survivor to help with getting Galadriel there. It, it's too cute by half, and it's gonna be the can I but I can fix him thing, and what makes Sauron really evil is that he brought down Numenor, or is he broke up or with Galadriel or something, or used Galadriel. It's gonna be something silly like that. Like that's how we're gonna show you how evil Sauron really is. He wouldn't stay with Galadriel, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, I just don't know. It's pretty bad.
It is a bad show. I just, and I'm just gonna go watch the extended versions of the Peter Jackson one. I still don't think The Hobbit was that great. That should only be about a 2 hour, 2.5 hour single movie. But it's by comparison.
Here's the thing. I won't say it's bad. I think it's like a really good game that has a lot of padding. Like Dante's Inferno. I played a game called Dante's Inferno. It was a pretty dang good game, but only the first half of it. And then after that, it got very compartmentalized. They just started reskinning the monsters, and it's like, oh, you wanted more gameplay, so you padded the hell out of this because you were coming up on deadline and didn't want to wait. I feel like they had a good concept for a movie with The Hobbit, and making a live action was a surefire thing. But then they were like, we got to make it a trilogy. We got to make a trilogy because everything had to be a fucking trilogy back then. And it's like, you do not have enough content to make a trilogy out of this. So what they do? They just stuffed as much padding in there as they possibly could.
Nikki's being super entertaining in the chat. Being in a relationship with Guy Ladbro would explain why Sauron turned into a cold, dark, evil man.
Yeah, maybe he was just a good guy up until this point, and she corrupted him.
Yeah, that is.
That's why there's not a tempest in her anymore. It's in him now.
The tempest in me has been quelled. Because he's evil. Oh. I don't know. I think this is I don't know. To me, Amazon is doing things so terrible that 100% that's going to end up where they're going. Like, that's going to be why she really did create the evil she was trying to stop. That's what that's what it's going to be. And it's going to also not be Guy Ladbro's fault. It's going to be, like, where she's gonna be betrayed for this. That's gonna be the thing. Like, like she's gonna have been duped, and and the ring, and that's why she'll accept the ring, because it's coming from part of the work he made. It's gonna be a show, but at least we'll get YouTube content out of it, which is good, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, it gives us something to talk about. So it's not completely unsuccessful.
That's true.
I just wish it was good.
Oh.
Like, that's like compared to last week's episode, right? We talked about Spy X Family and we talked about, Cobra Kai. Those are good. I enjoy talking about those too.
Yeah, those are good.
But
that if they really want Lord of the Rings fans to burn down their entire, set and everything, it would be trying to make Tom Bombadil the bad guy. I think I've said this before. When I was working at the movie theater and the first Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, like the very first movie, the thing that all the Lord of the Rings fans were, to a person, just like bitching about coming out of the movie, was Tom Bombadil. Like, why is Tom Bombadil? Why'd they cut Tom Bombadil? They need to have Tom Bombadil. If Amazon does anything to like tarnish Tom Bombadil, like the Tolkien people are gonna riot. If there's one thing they need to not do, it's mess with Tom Bombadil.
I think most of the Tolkien people have already checked out at this point or are in the process of rioting. This is, to quote some of the other shows that, have covered this, it's just the normies watching at this point.
Oh yeah. I don't even know if the normies are watching this, because like I said, when we check in on the Nielsen ratings when the next week comes out, when it's only one episode, I don't think it's going to be doing so hot. If you're lighting $1 billion on fire, that thing needs to be number one every week, right? That's the expectation.
And your viewer base should be growing, not shrinking.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to shrink.
I agree. Going to be shrinking. All right. Well, this has been a real fun episode. We talked a lot about different things. Just had a fun hangout. Thanks to the chat, especially Nikki coming in and being super entertaining, and thank you for understanding that moobs is the appropriate term to use going forward. If you guys enjoy our content, we're going to be typical YouTubers and ask you to like, subscribe,
smash
share.
That like button, subscribe, hit the bell, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, on the way out, one more comment from Nikki. Oh no, I love the show. Number 1, it's syncing Amazon Prime, and number 2, hitting on is so fun. That's what it's gonna be. It'll be a content stream for as long as they're gonna light that money on fire. So like, subscribe, smash that like button, subscribe, share our show. We're available also on podcasts homes like Apple, Google, Podbean, any of the place. Sweet. Nikki subbed and she'll be back. We'd like to record and go live on Thursday nights, and we'll see you guys next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.